Waterfall, the CCW podcast.
Hello and welcome to Waterfall. It's the water saving podcast brought to you by CCW, that's the Consumer Council for Water. Waterfall's all about saving water, saving money, protecting the environment and combating climate change. I'm Mike and I am not alone because Karen is here too. Hiya, Karen.
Hello, Mike. How are you?
I am very good. You're looking super smiley today. It's downhill from now, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Do you know what? We've got a brilliant show lined up. It is super interesting, this episode, because we've got a guest called Dan Angelescu, who is from a company called Fluidion. And they have been monitoring river water pollution on the River Seine in Paris, particularly looking at whether it's safe to swim in with the Paris Olympics in mind. So we've got the Olympic Games just in a few weeks' time. So that is absolutely fascinating, finding out what they are up to in Paris. But I don't want to steal Dan's thunder, so we'll be getting to Dan in a minute. If you want to get in touch with us at Waterfall, you can. We have an email address.
We do indeed, and that's podcast@ccwater.org.uk.
Now, Karen, before we get into Dan, we are talking sewage and river water pollution today. So I thought I'd bring a little sewage item to your attention before we start. We get this every so often from water companies. I love them. They're the regular lists of the strange things that are found in sewage treatment works that have been dumped in the sewer. So this list is a recent one produced by Severn Trent. They've produced a list of the top 10 strangest things found in Severn Trent sewers. So before we I don't want to just read out the list. Can you guess some of these items, Karen? So there's 10, funnily enough, on the top 10.
Oh, let me think. Cuddly toys.
Cuddly toys? No, not quite.
False teeth.
Yes, there's always false teeth, right? I refer back to the episode with my mum on when she talked about losing
That
it.
was what sprang to mind.
Yeah, so false teeth, great, very good.
Lots of unflushables.
Well, all the things are unflushable that are on the list, Karen. All right, I'll put you out of your misery. A Ken doll.
Oh, no.
That's very on trend. False teeth, as you said. Parts of a garden shed. Goodness knows which parts. Underwear. A chopped up bed frame. Glasses. Now, you can understand how glasses could accidentally get down there. Wallets. Keys. Cutlery. And car tyres. There you go.
I mean, that's just incredible, isn't it? I mean, how do people manage to get them down there?
Well, funnily enough, someone did ask Severn Trent how they got there, and a spokesman said, anyone's guess. I love these kinds of lists. I absolutely love these lists. So anyway, it does show what strange things go down the loo when we all know that there's only 3 things that should go down the loo.
Indeed. Paper, poo and pee.
Very good. Steve Grebby, who is Waterfall's resident sewer expert, would be very pleased at how on message we all are now. But that is true. And look, it does matter because blockages can cause sewer flooding. That can back up sewage into people's homes, into the gardens. And actually those blockages can find its way into the environment and cause environmental damage. And that is what we are going to hear about today with our fabulous guest from Fluidion. So let's just bring on the guest.
CCW, passionate about championing the best interests of everyone who uses water, now and in the future.
It's a great pleasure to welcome Dan Angelescu to Waterfall. Dan, you are the chief exec and the founder of Fluidion. Tell us a bit about that.
That's right, yeah. So Fluidion is a company that I started. It's time passes. It's almost 12 years now. Our goal was to basically figure out better ways to measure water because we realized that that's something really direly lacking today. So we started developing instrumentation that can replace people going out and collect samples, putting them in a cooler, bringing them to the lab. Basically, instrumentation that can automate a lot of the processes that take time, cost a lot of money. And then finally, they provide data that may be inaccurate in some cases because of errors or because of samples degrading. So we wanted to do something that is fully automated. And so we started developing instruments.
This is instruments that can measure all sorts of aspects of water quality. I mean, I'm no water quality expert.
Well, I mean, water is a very wide subject, right? I mean, we specifically concentrated on surface waters, and here we look at both some of the chemical aspects, but most importantly, we figured out a process to be able to measure bacteria, and specifically the fecal indicator bacteria that are polluting our waters and that are a sign of sewage pollution typically. So we can measure those rapidly and accurately with instruments that are portable. And then, that has applications, looking at coastal waters, at beaches where people bathe, looking at rivers. The Olympics are coming up, and a lot of people will be competing in the Seine River water. That's the plan. So we look at that kind of application, but then it goes all the way to measuring drinking water, for example, or measuring industrial waters. So we have a pretty wide range of applications.
I'm interested in that aspect of river water quality from a human health point of view, and the sort of bacteria and the fecal indicators that you were talking about. I mean, fecal indicators it's indicator of poo in the water, right? I mean, that's basically what that boils down to.
Essentially, that's what it is. I mean, it's not necessarily human poo, but it could be poo from dogs or from other warm-blooded animals. Yes. So that's what it's looking for. When you measure E. coli bacteria, you're looking essentially for traces of poo in the water.
Because this is clearly a hot topic in the UK at the moment, and you can't pick up a newspaper without a story about a water company and sewage pollution and people getting sick. So it is a hot topic, and monitoring is a hot topic too. Now, we're really interested in the work you're doing in Paris on the River Seine, obviously a iconic river there. I think I read some of that swimming's been banned on the Seine. Is that right?
It's true. It's been banned for a century or something like that. And it's been banned essentially because, rivers are not just, sources of water, but they're also the conduits that take away the sewage from cities. So ideally, you have the water intakes on the upstream and then the sewage, the outflows downstream, so you don't pollute your drinking water. But then on the Seine, you have many cities that follow each other. So, the sewage of one city can become the drinking water source of the next. So it's important to be able to measure these. And at some point, the city of Paris developed so rapidly and the sewage system was so antiquated that yes, the river started to be extremely polluted, and then it took a lot of work starting, already several decades ago to try to manage that sewage system and to make it actually modern and reduce the levels of pollution. And we're not only talking about fecal indicators, we're also talking about all the chemicals, nutrients, etc., which are actually what's killing life in the river as well. So a lot of progress has been done, and now we're approaching the Olympics, and there is still progress to be done. So we're very interested in the outcome here. We've been monitoring the river for many years now with our automatic systems and also using laboratory measurements. So we have a pretty solid database, if you'd like, of water quality over several years. And we've worked both independently, but also with the city of Paris, who has been trying to set up a measurement program for essentially having a baseline of the Seine water and understanding the levels of pollutions encountered and how those correlate with different events, which could be, sewage overflows, it could be rain events, it could be, different, a broken pipe or something.
This is super interesting. Can we just take a step back then? So you have got Fluidion kit measuring, you've got your monitors on the Seine at the moment, and you've had that for a while. So how many years have you been doing that?
So we started monitoring in 2017, and we started this in a collaboration with CEOP, which is the wastewater authority of the Greater Paris area. And then, the systems, they have accredited labs and everything. So they've tested first in the lab side by side our instruments against the standard methods, and it worked. So then we put our systems in the river, and then we started working directly with the City Hall of Paris. And there were two main projects that we worked with the city on. So we've been monitoring the Seine River at multiple locations and having, at the maximum, I think we had 4 systems measuring in parallel at different locations. And then we also monitored a bathing water site, which is on the Saint Martin Canal, which is a side canal of the Seine River, and that has water from a different source, so it's not as polluted as the Seine. And that's where the city set up bathing water sites, open water bathing water sites. So they asked us to install our monitoring stations upstream of that on the canal to sort of be able to measure, a few hours ahead what the water quality might be at the bathing site the next morning, for example. So we had actually quite a few systems installed, and then we also have our own measurements and sampling programs. We've been, this is a lot of research data for us. We're very interested from, not just working with the city, but for our own scientific knowledge. We're trying to understand and measure independently what is happening. And at the same time, we're trying to set up what we call citizen science programs, because the instruments we've developed allow for measurements to be performed by people without specific training. So, it's relatively simple. You put the sample in a vial, you press a button and you start a measurement. And then the results, those results actually can bring a wealth of data. So we're working on 3 different big projects. One is our own monitoring project. The other is the work we've been doing with the city of Paris. This year, the city of Paris decided not to use any automated instrumentation at the Olympic site. They will rely entirely on lab measurements for the access to the Olympic site, but we still continue our own independent monitoring at the Olympic site. So we have quite a bit of data to look at and to try to understand, and looking forward towards the Olympics, which are coming in 6 weeks or something like that, a little bit over. We're looking at what the improvements are, and there are, we're expecting significant improvements, which should come anytime now, and we're monitoring closely.
It's interesting to hear about the sort of problems that Paris has obviously been grappling with in terms of urbanisation and the inevitable spills that you get from surface and roads running off into the rivers, etc., which again adds chemical pollutants and things like that to the river. I mean, those are the sorts of problems that, certainly are fairly widespread in most major cities and urban areas. And I presume that the kind of monitoring that you've been doing could basically be used around the world, in any of those sorts of settings.
It could be, and it is. It is used not only in Paris. We have systems installed in Los Angeles, in New York City, we have systems being used in Boston. We have systems being used in the UK quite a bit. We're working with a whole range of organizations. We're working with the UK Environment Agency, but we're also working with water utilities quite closely, who are trying to improve a little bit on their environmental impact. And we're working also with a number of non-government organizations that are doing monitoring either in citizen science projects or that are trying to provide data that could convince politicians that action needs to be taken in certain areas.
I'm interested in the Olympics, obviously, in Paris. So you've got a bunch of monitors in place, and do you have an alert system linked to that in terms of giving people advice on whether they can interact with the river or not?
Absolutely. So it's funny because the name of the product that measures in situ for us, it's called the alert system. That's the product name, but it is in itself, it is an alert system in the sense that it is a fully connected, Internet of Things type object. So it has a SIM card like a cell phone does, so it can communicate with servers. It can communicate with our servers, so it can trigger it remotely and it sends the data in real time. So, when it comes to the server, this data is analyzed, and when we get a detection, we can, make it appear on a dashboard. We can send emails. We can have automatic notifications. So yes, it is an alert system. And if you get, for example, very high contamination, when you get the email, oh, we detected this value that's very high, it gives you essentially time to take action without putting people at risk, which is really important in these cases. So Yeah, it's something you can call it an alert system or an early warning system. There are different names for the same type of architecture.
So is this something that the general public could access? So if I went on the web now and tried to find river water quality in Paris, could I find an alert right now?
Well, the city currently we're not publishing the data we're measuring, but it will be published and we will make it openly available. So currently it's not on a dashboard where everybody can look, but it's likely that will end up there before the Olympics because we think it's really important to provide visibility and to provide the public with reliable data of about what is happening, especially since the authorities have not been very, haven't communicated a lot on this topic. And yes, a lot of people are concerned. The press is concerned. We get calls every single day. We're trying to really maintain a lot of scientific integrity here and, present things as they are. This is what we measure. This is what it could mean, but it doesn't necessarily mean this or not that. I mean, we're trying to, qualify our statements based on the scientific data we collect.
So would it be a system that would the public alerts come from the city or would it come from you guys? Just try to get my head around how that would work.
It really depends. Generally, the typical way we operate is, we are the instrument and the solution provider to a municipality, or that could be, it could also be a rowing club. It could be, it could be a group of, citizens that are concerned by the water quality in their area. It's not necessarily a big institution. It could be a very small group of people that are interested in the data. So we provide the instruments, we provide their access to the platform, and then generally they are responsible for communicating the data. We also provide what we call an API, which is a programming interface, if you'd like, which allows them to collect this data automatically and put it on the web if they want. But they decide what they do with the data. We provide them with the instruments, we provide them with the dashboard, we provide them with our data analytics platform, and from there they decide on the communication side.
What would you like Waterfall to cover next? Send your water-saving topics to podcast@ccwater.org.uk.
Just sticking with the Olympics, because obviously people are going to be really interested in the Olympics. You said there were improvements that are on their way. So Is there still work to be done then to improve the quality of the Seine? Aren't they kind of a bit fine?
You think you're seeing the finish line, right? It should be right. In a few weeks, everything should be perfect. Well, the reality is that, all the projects, they're humongous projects that cost billions of euros or pounds, and that involve, on one hand, one of the biggest projects is there are capture tanks that were built under Paris at the Austerlitz train station that are the equivalent, I don't know, something like 20 Olympic pools. And they're supposed to collect before the sewage overflows in the river, it would be collected in this tank. And only when this tank completely fills up, it will overflow. Currently, at every rain event, it overflows just because the pipes don't have the capacity to carry all that water to the treatment plant, and then the treatment plant doesn't have the capacity to treat it properly. So everything that's over capacity currently goes in the river. When you have this tank, it creates a buffer. So instead of the sewage going into the river at the next rain event, it would go into this pool. And if the rain event is not too big to fill this pool completely, then it will have time afterwards to be pumped to a treatment station. So you wouldn't get what we call this combined sewer overflow. Now, this has been inaugurated officially by the mayor of Paris, Anne Hidalgo, several weeks ago. But it wasn't operational right away, and we have not received communication from the city of Paris whether currently it is operational or not. We are measuring, and we do not see yet major improvements versus the previous weeks. So, we hope that these will come any day now, and we're looking forward to really being able to measure with the certified data how well that has helped the health of the river and the safety of the river. So that's one big project. But then there are many others. For example, it's not just the city of Paris that's polluting, but there are plenty of cities, both on the Seine River and the Marne River, which merge just at the entry of Paris. On these rivers, you have many little, villages and little towns. I mean, it's a big Paris sprawl, urban sprawl. And you have many of these cities, they do have separate rainwater or stormwater and sewage networks, but you still have houses that are connected to the wrong network. We call these illicit connections, right? So there are houses basically that flush their toilets directly into the river because they go to the wrong pipe. And this could be a plumber that did this 50 years ago, and he didn't pay attention, or he paid attention but he did it nevertheless. So that's a big problem, because this, a single person putting their sewage directly in the river pollutes as much as 10,000 people whose sewage goes to a wastewater treatment plant, right? So the impact is enormous. And this is a much more difficult project because it involves thousands of houses. You need to locate the illicit connections, which is, you need to send tracers in the pipes and to see whether the fluorescent tracer comes out in the right manhole. And I mean, it takes time, and then it takes a lot of money to change it, right? You need to change the connections, to dig, and so that's a humongous project. And I think that's been going quite a bit slower than the capture basins they are building. And in addition to that, you have other sources of pollution. Even the wastewater plants pollute, right? I mean, they reduce significantly by orders of magnitude the concentration of bacteria, but they still get water from millions of people that comes into the wastewater plant. So the effluent, if it's untreated, it's still quite by untreated, I mean without a disinfection step, which is, the final step if you want to kill all the bacteria. And the European regulations do not require wastewater plants to disinfect their effluent. But if they are upstream of Paris, obviously you want to disinfect that if you want the level of the Seine to be acceptable. And that's also something that the city said it would be operational over the summer months. We are not sure yet if this disinfection has started at the wastewater plants on the Marne and on the Seine River or not. We don't yet see a major effect of it. So we're hoping that all of these combined efforts will show their fruit for the Olympics. And we're waiting to see that in the data.
Is there a possibility that they don't use the River Seine for Olympic events?
This is, I think, not a question for me. This is a question for the Olympic Committee and the organizers. The official line, when they were asked this, on TV, they said that there is no plan B. So I'm not sure if that means that there is a plan C or that it's only the river.
Yeah, I absolutely take your point. It's not your call to make, but I'm guessing they'll use some of your data to help inform a decision.
Yes, I mean, they have a lot of data, I think. They're collecting their own samples. So they probably know as well as we do what the water quality is. Their labs measure, I think, multiple times a day. So, what we provide is a way to get these results much, much faster, same day. So you can actually take action just before something bad is about to happen. You stop it from happening. That's where we provide a lot of value. But, the city has perfectly adequate accredited labs that can measure and get results, the second day or in 2 days. And so they know what the state of the river is, and they see that themselves. One thing that we have done that the city doesn't is that our measurements are actually measuring more than what the lab measurement does. I mean, we're doing all the lab measurements as well, but our fast measurements are actually able to measure something that the lab doesn't see. And these are bacteria that are clumped together. And when you have a sewage overflow, you have a lot of solid matter that goes into the river, right? So solid matter starts decomposing and it turns into smaller and smaller particles, and some of it settles down at the bottom of the river. But when you have a rain event, you have all this sewage overflow that comes in, and these particles, they're relatively big, but they flow with the water, and then they degrade up to a point, but not completely. I mean, you can still have 50 bacteria attached to a clump of 50 bacteria on a particle that will stay up in the water column, so it will not go down and sediment. And then when you have a rain, you also have a lot of water coming in the river, and the sediment is being put back into suspension. So all this reservoir of bacteria and fecal matter that's at the bottom of the river, it comes back up. And except that the standard methods today used by the labs, they count a clump of 100 bacteria as a single bacterium. They don't see the difference between them. Whereas our method sees that difference. And what is really alarming is that sometimes you can have 4 to 5 to 10 times more bacteria in the water than what you measure with the standard lab methods because of the presence of these additional bacteria that are clumped together. And we can see those and we can qualify those. So we have a lot of science that comes out of this. And it's a little bit concerning because all the safety regulations in the world, if you'd like, they're based on the standard lab methods today, and those are not very accurate for in these kind of situations.
Well, that's depressing.
Well, it is what it is, right? This is how the whole world has been functioning for decades now, and the reality is that these safety regulations, it's a time. It's been time to overhaul them for quite some time, and there are much more accurate methods out there available, and the technology evolves, and we develop these instruments. There are other companies developing other methods and other instruments, but the idea is that the state of the knowledge and of the science improves, and with this, we're going to be able to have much more effective preventive action, we hope, and much more timely preventive action as well.
The thing that I find really interesting is the fact that, we know, if you like, the things that we need to do. It's about sort of putting the getting the evidence in place to support the case for making investments and what have you. And that seems to be a really, big contribution that you're going to be able to make, identifying what needs to happen and by when,
Yes.
The other thing that strikes me as well is how similar a lot of the problems are around the world. We have all developed, wastewater systems along very similar lines. And so we face very similar problems because we haven't all necessarily kept up with the level of investment necessary to keep them as fit for purpose as they should be by now.
Absolutely. Well, I think London has the very first prototype sewage system, right? I think it's one of the, if not the first, it's one of the very first cities that implemented a citywide sewage system. Paris came several years later, and they're both really old systems, right, that have not been sized for the size of the cities today, but for the size of the cities, 150 years ago. So that accounts for a big part of it. And yes, there are plenty of cities with older infrastructure see the same problems. You see this in Chicago, you see this in New York City, you see this in plenty of places. So yes, the problems tend to be similar in cities that have combined sewers. And the other set of problems in cities that have separative sewers or stormwater and sewage separate is that often you have these illicit connections, and that also seems to be a pretty common problem that's encountered everywhere. I guess all the jokes about plumbers, they have to have some true root because it seems like they make the same kind of mistakes everywhere.
No, absolutely. In the UK and in England and Wales in particular, there's been a big step up in the amounts of monitors that show when a combined sewer is spilling. But there's not so many monitors that actually tell you the composition of what is being spilled and what's in the river. It feels like that's kind of like the next step in the UK. Do you see any, from your experience, do you see any country who's really got this cracked? Who's really doing a good job in river water quality monitoring?
The short answer is no. I think the technology to be able to do that and to measure, what comes in a river. I mean, a combined sewer overflow is a terrible event in terms of pollution. I mean, you have all these pathogens and, that are measured using fecal indicator bacteria, but there are real, viruses and protozoa and all kinds of things there that can really get you sick. they all go in the river. Along with that, you have a lot of chemicals and pharmaceuticals and everything that's in the sewage, right? Everything we put down the toilet, and that includes plenty of things. So it is really dangerous, and it is not a service that we're doing to the environment or to nature. So yes, being able to measure both the microbiological and the chemical pollution from from combined sewers and their overflows is essential. And whereas chemical pollution is more something that it can lead to a chronic disease. It can lead to chronic exposure can finally lead you to a health conditions. In terms of the pathogens, they can really get you sick right away. And if you're unlucky, they can kill you, or if you have a weak immune system, or if you're a child, or an infant that can dehydrate really easily, that's where it's really dangerous. So yes, it is extremely important to be able to monitor that, but the technology hasn't really been available, right? It's such a complex mixture. So our technology is some of the very first systems that can measure fecal indicator bacteria, automatically. And now we've just released a tiny system that's handheld that allows you to just go out to the river, take a sample, and you get, it operates on a little battery. It does the full measurement and it shows the result on a little screen. So this is a low-cost device that we've developed mostly for use in the developing countries. That's what we thought initially, but then we find a lot of interest in use in the developed countries for monitoring the rivers and for measuring this way, concerned individuals can monitor in front of their house and understand, well, what is the water quality here? And then you can figure out where it's coming from. I mean, you can really build knowledge and data and have a data-driven policy going forward. So we trust that this empowering, individuals and citizen science groups and NGOs with the ability to do these measurements without having to take a sample to the lab, wait a week, get the results a week later where it's too late. It's an essential contribution that we're making. And, in the UK, we're working with groups like River Action that have been using this analyzer to measure, all kinds of boat races, and then measure the Thames River. It came up on the BBC, and it's starting to gain a little bit of prominence in the in the media, and we think that this is going to lead to more people wanting to be able to monitor, rowing clubs and swimming clubs and all the coastal cities and cities that are in nature reserves and etc. People that fish in the water.
Yeah, no, and I can imagine there must be a lot of interest in having a device that is something that is commercially available, that is handheld, easy to use, gives you quick results, given the interest in the topic at the moment. And I don't see that interest disappearing. So yeah, I can imagine that'd be really welcome. Unfortunately, we're running out of time, which is a shame because this is absolutely fascinating stuff. But we do have a very important question we need to ask you.
I'm trembling already. What is it?
We do like to ask our guests whether they know how much water they actually use per person per day in their household. We do an end of the year kind of league table. So
Oh my God, yes.
we'd be really interested to know, firstly, whether you know how much water you use, and also where that comes out at.
Yes, I think we do. We're a small household of two plus a cat. And we use on average on the two people without counting the cat in the average, we use about between 100 and 120 liters per day. That is, I'm not sure if these are the right units. I should, yeah, I think that is. And, that includes our, a little bit of gardening and, showers, drinking water and everything.
That's very good.
Water.
Is that in total, the 100 to 120, or per person?
It is per person.
Per person, yeah. No,
Yeah.
That's right. That is good. That's
not bad.
decent. Well, and what's the UK average? 146 litres per person per day?
Yes, about that at the moment. I mean,
Yeah.
it varies around the
Yeah.
country as such, but
In France, I think it varies a lot. I think if you go to the south of France, the use of water is significantly higher. Well, because possibly for agriculture, for irrigation, or these kind of things, which in the north, or Paris is more towards the north of France, you get more rainfall. So so I think that also accounts for lower usage as you go towards the north. So the UK normally should be even lower, but based on
Well,
that
you'd
logic.
think so. Yeah. And so are you going to go to any of the Olympics events, Dan?
I hope so. Yes, I plan to at least see the swimming event. Yeah, I'd love to.
And would you swim in the Seine yourself?
When my data says that the water quality is sufficient, I will. But I will
Right.
trust my data first. Yeah.
Fair answer.
Seems very
Yeah,
sensible.
yeah. Dan, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us.
Great pleasure as well. Thank you
Really
very much.
fascinating.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. And good luck.
Thank you very much. Great to be here.
Be sure to head back through the archives and check out all the past episodes of Waterfall.
So that was Dan. Really good to hear Dan there. I found that fascinating, Karen. What did you make of it all?
I think for me, what it brought home was the fact that most towns and cities have developed their drainage and wastewater systems in a very similar way. And as a consequence, they're all facing very similar problems to the ones that we've certainly experienced here.
No, that's a really good point, because the problems in Paris are not dissimilar from the problems you'll see in any big city and in towns, in fact, too. No, you're absolutely spot on with that. I mean, I was really struck by what a big call that someone's got to make, and Dan made it clear it wasn't him. The big call they've got to make on whether or not to swim in the Seine during the Olympics or not, because that's going to be a really big call, really high profile event. And we saw, obviously, here in the UK, the news items about the boat race in the Thames.
Oh, yes.
And there was a lot made of that. So you could see that this could be a really high profile event. And obviously no one wants to get sick while swimming, and people want to see safe places to swim. So a huge call to be made there. But that was fantastic. Really great to hear from Dan. Karen, we're sort of running out of time. Let's just remind people how they can get in touch with the show.
Well, they could always email us, which is at podcast at ccwater.org.uk. I'll get it right one of these days, Mike.
It's all right. I always ask you because I don't know it. There's the truth. Anyway, look, we've run out of time. Great to hear from Dan. Fascinating stuff. So it's goodbye from me, Mike.
And goodbye from me, Karen.